These are the lecture notes for Chapter 5, Section 3, the French and Indian War. Before you learn, the French had set up colonies and established a trading relationship with the native peoples of North America. Now you will learn land claims and rivalry between European powers, settlers, and Native Americans led to a war that united the colonies against a common enemy. The French and Indian War. Pontiac's Rebellion. Native American revolt against the British colonies. Pontiac's Rebellion is going to occur after the French and Indian War, when settlers start going into the Ohio Valley that they have won from the French. The Native Americans, for the most part in this region, had sided with the French and were not excited to see the new British settlers. They often attacked them, but they often were attacked by the British settlers too. So Pontiac's Rebellion. French and Indian War. War from 1754 to 1763 between France, Britain, and their allies for the control of North America. The French and Indian War was part of a much larger war called the 7 Years' War between Britain and France. Albany Plan of Union. This was the first formal proposal to unite the colonies. It was proposed by Benjamin Franklin. He believed that if the colonies worked together in a united front, they could be able to defeat the Native Americans and the French much more easily. It did not go through. Many of the colonial assemblies were afraid that the Albany Plan of Union would take away their power. So it was a proposal, but it didn't pass. Battle of Quebec. Battle that led to the British victory in the French and Indian War. In the Battle of Quebec, the British were able to go up the side of a cliff and find a secret way to get up to the city of Quebec. The next morning, they were able to fight the battle on the plains of Quebec, pretty much a surprise attack on the Quebecs. Both the British leader and the French leader were both killed in the battle. Treaty of Paris, 1763. This is a treaty that ended the war between France and Britain. A lot of land did change hands due to the Treaty of Paris. The British were given all of the lands along the East Coast, including Spain, Florida, because Spain had sided with France in the very end of the war. So Spanish Florida was given over to the British. One other thing that was given over was the city of large chunks of land to the west where the French believed this because France, sorry, let me start over. Because France had been an ally of the Spanish and the Spanish had lost Florida because of the Treaty of Paris, the French are going to give Spain a lot of their land in the west. So all the land west of the Mississippi River is given to Spain by France. All right, Proclamation of 1763. You're going to hear this term a lot in the next few weeks. The British declared that all the land west of the Appalachians was off limits to settlers. So it forbade settlers from settling west. This angered the colonists because they felt like they had fought the French, and had earned the right to settle in the Ohio River Valley and all the lands to the west. But because of Pontiac's Rebellion, the British did not want to fight the Native Americans. They had lost a lot of money dealing with the French and Indian War, dealing with the 7 Years' War, and so they didn't want to spend more money trying to control the Native Americans, trying to keep peace between settlers and Native Americans. So that was the purpose of the Proclamation of 1763. Okay, first question. Why were Native Americans involved in conflicts between Europeans? Well, both Britain or British and French had Native American fur trading partners. They were often dragged into conflicts with their Native American allies, much as the same as the Europeans drug each other into battles. Economic alliances became military alliances when the rivals competed. So they were dragged into conflicts because of trade alliances. What alliances fought in the French and Indian War? Okay, so who was on which side? The British and France disputed lands west of the Appalachians. The colonists wanted to move west. They asked the Iroquois to join their British side. The French had just about all the other Native Americans. I think this map shows it. Let's see. Yeah. Okay, so hang on, that's still not the one I
The
wanted.
French and Indian War.
Okay, so on this map, you're going to see that the allies for the British are going to be I'm sorry, the allies for the French are going to be the Hurons, the Algonquins, the Shawnee, and the Lanialepi, but I don't see them on here. And for the British, they're mainly going to have the Iroquois. The Iroquois were 6 different tribes that had band together. Spain's going to have a pact with France, but they didn't arrive until very late in the war, and so they really didn't have much of an impact. They basically lost their land and didn't have any input into helping France. This is a picture of the Battle of Quebec. Montcalm, of course, is the guy in the middle. I've already told you that he does die in the battle, but so does the commander of the French. And the capture of Quebec was a major defeat for the French because it was their capital city. The British were able to, after the Battle of Quebec, go on to Montreal. After they held Montreal and Quebec, they really had control of all of the French Canadians or all the New France land. And I am not seeing anything about Braddock's defeat. I'm trying to figure out if I missed a slide. Huh, I can't find it. Let's try forward one more time. Okay, I guess there's no slide on it. Okay, so let's talk about Braddock for just a minute. Braddock is going to be defeated. Before Braddock, though, there was George Washington. The governor of Virginia is going to send a very young Washington. He was only a lieutenant at the time. He's only 23, I believe, to the French who are on the other side of the Appalachian Mountains in land that was claimed by both France and Britain. And George Washington's job is to tell the French that they need to leave the Ohio Valley. Now, they didn't take too kindly to that because they also believed that they owned the Ohio Valley. So they tell him no. He then sets up a fort called Fort Necessity, and after this fort's set up, the French and the Indians attack him, and he's forced to retreat and go back to Virginia. About a year later, the English are going to send over their very famous general, General Braddock, and General Braddock is going to go back over to talk to the French again to try to, with a whole army of 2,100 men, and he's supposed to take over this French fort, Fort Duquesne. The problem is they're all wearing these bright red coats, so they're really easy targets for the French and the Indians. Now, George Washington had already been out there once, so he tries to warn Braddock about how the French and the Indians don't necessarily fight the same as what the Braddock had been used to in European conflicts. Braddock ignores the advice of George Washington. In fact, he goes very slowly because he's hauling this great big cannon that he's really not going to be able to use. So he makes a big target. He's also many of the officers with Braddock bring along their wives and a bunch of household goods. And so, traveling slowly, the French and the Indians are able to kill Braddock and many of his men, and so Braddock is defeated. After Braddock is defeated, there's a new Secretary of War in Britain. His name is William Pitt, and he decides to put more money into the war in America because you got to remember the French and Indian War was only part of the war. There was a much bigger conflict called the Seven Years' War. So William Pitt puts more money, sends over the best generals to fight the French and Indian War, and after he does that, the British are going to start winning a lot more of the conflicts. Let's see here. Make sure what's a pact. That means that they're going to be an ally. Number 7, how was General Wolfe able to defeat the French at Quebec? They were able to defeat them because of the fact that they snuck up the side of a cliff in the middle of the night under cover of darkness. Number 8, how did the French and Indian War affect Native Americans? Okay, and that's where we want to go. All right, so the Indians were used to the French being in control of the Ohio Valley, and the French and the Native Americans had a very good working relationship. The French were kind to the Native Americans, helped them out with general supplies, but they didn't really pay as well for their pelts as the British had. But generally, they were very respectful of Native Americans. The British, on the other hand, were not. And so Pontiac and other Native American leaders are going to start leading protests and raids against any settlement in the Ohio Valley. They take over all the forts. The three forts they don't take over, they do surround. And the British come up with a plan to try to eliminate one of the Native American tribes, the Lenni Lenapes, by giving them smallpox infected blankets. In other words, blankets that had been used at a smallpox hospital. They then give those to the chiefs from the Lenni Lenapes, and they take them back to the village, spreading the disease among them. Because the Native Americans had never had smallpox before, they hadn't built up any immunity, and so it was a very deadly gift by giving them these smallpox-infected blankets. Let's see here. Other conflicts with Native Americans. We got the Pontiac's Rebellion. We have Native Americans. And because the British did not want to fight the Native Americans, it was very costly. That is why they're going to start with the Proclamation of 1763. The proclamation, again, forbid colonists from moving west of the Appalachian Mountains. Colonists are not happy about this. So this is number 9. And they reacted by trying to ignore the proclamation of 1763 and still moving into that region. When they do this, the king's going to start sending in troops. So we'll get more into that in chapter 6. All right, does anyone have a question? Please write it at the bottom of your notes and we'll answer it in class. All right, thank you.